here at the Crystal Building in London, a Sustainable Cities initiative for Siemens, and tonight we're launching the Investor Ready Cities report, which is a report that's been produced in collaboration with PwC, BLP and Siemens, and it brings together a number of messages that are critical to enable cities to deliver infrastructure. It was written because the three global companies have realised in their individual sectors that cities are all suffering from the same issues. And that's really understanding how to implement urban infrastructure, but how to do that in a way that's going to be financed by the private sector.
Traditionally, cities were funding like governments from budget. Only a couple of years back, this started to be funded through borrowings and indirect project financings, and this is ever increasing. On the lending side, we have beyond banks, multinationals. Today we have any amount of funds and a lot of people who are looking for yield and for investable situations.
We need to involve the private resource, not only financial, but financial competences, technology. It is impossible to build a great transformation only with public investment. At the same time, the private investment need the relation with the public power, the public policy, the public strategy. A partnership between public and private sector, and together to imagine and to implement a future of our city.
Risk allocation is key to the success of these projects. The risk allocation between private sector and public sector decides whether or not these projects can be done, can attract enough investments. The private sector should be tasked with what the private sector does well, namely constructing, completing and technically doing a project. The public sector on his side needs to pay eventually for the completed project. So here the technical completion risks and other things should be allocated to the private sector, while the longer term payment risk should be borne by the public sector. This is easier said than done, and the devil is always in the detail. But if you get the right people from all constituents together, this is necessary and it can work.
Investors expect projects to be packaged for their purposes and their purposes alone, and they very quickly forget the key purpose for building infrastructure is to give the users necessary public services rather than to structure projects for investors. That's the first point, is that projects do need to be structured around user needs first and foremost. But if we are getting into investable projects, i.e. we've accepted the services we want to provide need to be provided, we've defined them, and now we're looking to attract investors into projects. A lot of people in the market, and this is the second point, a lot of people in the market are saying that there's not enough finance going around, it's difficult to get access to finance. I fundamentally disagree with that. The reality is, in today's market, there's more than enough cash going around in the system. Pension funds, insurance companies, banks, equity investors are all looking for a home to put their money, and most of them are looking at infrastructure as an investable asset class.
Borrowing a quote from Peter Drucker, the late master of simple truth, the safest job is one where something that is really needed is done efficiently. Applied to cities, infrastructure is definitely needed in an urbanizing world. Efficiency is the opposite of waste. This is where the private sector and financing can play an important role. The world is awash with liquidity. The task is to attract this liquidity to the projects at hand in cooperation between the public sector and the private sector. The private sector mainly technically and financially. This is the main question. Financing, in my mind, is not a science, it is not an art, it is a craft. The craft of allocating risks properly to get projects done.